Today makes it 5 years since I attempted to commit suicide. My name is Bemsimbom Nkuo, and I come from a rural community located in Cameroon. Cameroon is a country found in Central Africa. Growing up, if I needed anything, such as food, clothing, or shelter, my parents provided it for me, and so I had a fairly fortunate life until I became 14. At 14, I started suffering from a sense of low self-esteem. When it came to clothes, I didn't have the best outfits, so I felt like I didn't fit in amongst my peers. And when it came to academics, I wasn't the best performing student, and so I felt like I was letting my parents down. So one day, I thought to myself, what can I do that would allow me to stand out amongst my peers? And then I had a brilliant idea: to be silent. You might ask me, how would an individual being silent enable them to stand out amongst their peers? Well, in Cameroon, unlike the United States of America, when an individual is silent or introverted, they're usually considered to be respectful towards their elders and to be smart. On the other hand, extroverts are considered to be loud and disrespectful towards their elders. So this idea of being silent worked well for me for a particular period of 2 years until I became 16. At 16, my parents were just separated, and I just experienced my first breakup, and so I started experiencing long periods of sadness. I could hear my heart beat against my chest, and I could hear the racing thoughts in my head, and I would hit my head on the wall several times, hoping that the pain I felt would go away. But that was never the case. So this time, I had another brilliant idea. And my idea was that when everybody went to sleep at night, I would tiptoe to the living room, and I would sit there and I would cry, so that during the day, I could be the happy and jovial child everybody knew me to be. And this plan worked well for me for a period of 3 days, until one night, something different happened. So that night, as I was crying in the living room, I could hear my grandmother wake up from her room and approach the living room. As I heard her steps coming to the living room, I held the book and I pretended to be studying. And then she comes and she stands next to me and she says, "Bemsu, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yes, Grandma, I'm fine." And she looks at me again and she says, "I don't believe you." And then she calls out, Anna, come downstairs. Come and help your daughter. She's crying." After a few minutes, my mother comes downstairs and she sits on the couch next to me and she asks me, "Bemsu, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yes, Mommy, I'm fine." And then after a few seconds of awkward silence, I turn and I look at my mother and I ask her, "Mommy, what if I killed myself?" And she looks at me and she says, "Well, if you kill yourself, we're going to host a big party and there's going to be lots of food and drinks, and after that, we're going to continue living like nothing happened." And after that, we did continue living like nothing had happened. Before you start creating different mental dialogues on what my mother should or shouldn't have said, I want you to keep 3 things in mind. The first thing is, conversations around mental health are not being had in the Cameroonian society, leading to higher levels of ignorance surrounding the topic. The second thing is, today, my mother will be able to provide me with the resources I need to be better because she has been able to educate herself on the importance of mental health within the Cameroonian context and to an individual specifically. Now, the third and most important thing I want you to keep in mind is there has been a disconnect on the perception of mental health illnesses between my generation, Generation Z, and that of my parents, Generation X. To better understand this disconnect, we're going to be looking at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a psychological theory that was developed by Abraham Maslow in 1943. This theory is usually presented in a 5-tier model pyramid structure, and for each category, for an individual to move from one category to the next, they would have to satisfy the prior category. So when my parents were growing up, they grew up in a time where their parents could barely provide for them their physiological needs. On the other hand, my parents have been able to provide for me my physiological needs, my needs of safety and security, so that gives me the space and time to worry about my needs such as self-esteem, self-actualization, and love and belonging. So today I'm able to understand why, after I told my mother that I almost wanted to kill myself, we're able to keep living like nothing had happened. And also, I'm able to understand my parents' perspective and understand that they grew up in a time where there wasn't space for them to express their emotions and to step into spaces of vulnerability. So it could really be nerve-wracking for them to do that today. Now, in order to do further research on mental health, because conversations around this topic were not being had in my country, I decided to do research on 5 countries and geographical locations. So I did research on China, India, Cameroon, Latin America, and the United States of America. And despite these areas being far away from each other and also very culturally distinct, they had one thing in common: stigma. Stigma prevents individuals suffering from mental health illnesses to be able to get the resources they need to thrive within their communities. And now I decided to look up stigma in the Cameroonian society. And if you look at stigma within Cameroon, you would see that there's a correlation between mental health illnesses and witchcraft. So if an individual started showing symptoms of depression, anxiety, or schizophrenia, they are more likely to be taken to a mental health, they're more likely to be taken to a religious leader than they are to be taken to a mental health professional. And if you look at the study that was carried out by Michael Guy Togum in 2022, he found out that there are only 1.8 human resources in mental health facilities for every 100,000 of the population in the west region of Cameroon. And out of that 1.87, 1.4 of them were nurses, and one in that 1.4 were located in the major cities, with 0.4 found in the rural cities. And now another study carried out by Basil Keogong in 2013, found in the northwest region of Cameroon, so Basil Keogong carried out an interview in the northwest region of Cameroon, and within a district hospital, he asked 15 nurses to list symptoms of depression and if they knew that depression could lead to suicide. Out of those 15, only 2 of them could list up to 3 symptoms of depression, and the remaining 13 nurses couldn't list any symptoms of depression and didn't know that depression was related with suicide in any way. They also went further to mention that they hadn't received any training in regards to mental health. So this shows you how much work needs to be done within the Cameroonian mental health system in order for us to see a change. From my research and experience, I've been able to propose a solution that could help end stigma within communities in Cameroon and around the world. And my proposed solution is the Unity in Isolated Events. The Unity in Isolated Events represents the idea that communities can come together without any fear of stigma, judgment, or the fear of being ostracized. And as a community, they'll be able to get the resources they need to help every individual within that community to thrive. And also, within that community, every member is aware of the fact that they make the policies that govern the people and not the other way around. To put into context, we'll be looking at a community made up of 6 houses. I just chose 6 because I lost 6. And in these 6 houses, they have parents and they have children. And within these 6 houses, everybody's happy and everybody's jovial. But there's something happening that every other member of this community is not aware of. That is, they all have a child that is suffering from a mental health illness in some shape, way, or form. But they are unable to get the child the resources the child needs because they are scared that they're going to be stigmatized and ostracized by the other members of the community. So we are able to realize the strength behind the unity in every isolated event. These parents within this community will be able to come together and get the resources these children need to succeed within their communities. In order to put this into perspective, we're going to be looking at the Northwest region in Cameroon. And within the Northwest region in Cameroon, there's always a Market Women Association. And the Market Women Association, as you can tell, is headed by a woman, and that woman is very influential within the community. And so if a mental health expert or activist like myself could go to the Northwest region of Cameroon and talk to this lady about the importance of mental health within the community and how it could affect women and children within her community, she'll be able to take up the initiative and go to have monthly meetings with the other women and talk to the women about mental health. And by doing that, the BEMSIs and ANAs within that community will start popping up, and together as a community of women, they'll be able to lobby for the resources and get the help they need to help the members within their community. So today, I stand in solidarity with everybody suffering from a mental health illness, and I call on everyone to lobby for resources that would help everyone thrive. Thank you.